The deadliest thing an ancient human ever did was close their eyes. Not the hunt, not the fight, not the long walk across open ground where anything could be watching. The most lethal stretch of an ancient day was the part where they did nothing at all, where they lay down, went quiet, and surrendered their eyes to the dark. For 200,000 years, the most dangerous 8 hours of a human life happened while they were lying still and defenseless. Tonight your darkness is a soft phone glow and a locked door and a thermostat holding the room at a temperature you never think about. Theirs was total. A blackness so complete they could hold a hand in front of their face and see nothing. No outline, no shadow, no proof the hand was even there. And by the end of this, you'll understand why you still wake at 3 in the morning for no reason at all. And why that so-called broken sleep was never broken. It was engineered. By them. For you, start with the thing you take for granted more than anything else. The switch on your wall, you flick it, and night ends. You've abolished darkness so thoroughly that you have to pay money and drive hours to find a place dark enough to see the stars. For a Homo sapiens 40,000 years ago, there was no switch. Sunset was not a mood or a color in the sky. Sunset was a door slamming shut, and there was no handle on the inside. When the last red light drained off the hills, the world did not go to sleep. The world woke up, because something out there in that blackness was hungry. And it could see far, far better than they could. Let's name the danger, because it wasn't one thing, it was 3, and they arrived in a specific order. The first was the cold. Not dramatic cold, quiet cold. When a human body lies still on bare ground through the night, heat bleeds straight down into the earth and out into the air, and it does it silently. There is no alarm for hypothermia. It doesn't hurt. It feels, near the end, almost warm. The body stops shivering, the mind goes soft and calm and stupid, and a person who lay down healthy at dusk could simply fail to wake at dawn, not eaten, not sick, just cooled past the point of return by a night that never raised its voice. That was death threat number 1, and it came for the weak, the old, the very young, every single night. The second threat had eyes. Ice Age Europe and Asia were not empty wilderness, they were shared with cave lions, with Panthera spelaea, a predator larger than the lions you know, built to hunt in low light. There were hyenas that worked in packs and could crush bone. There were leopards that dropped from above. These animals owned the night the way our ancestors owned the day. Their vision in near darkness was extraordinary. Their sense of smell could find a sleeping body from a long way off. To a cave lion, a group of humans lying still in the dark was not a threat. It was a larder that had helpfully stopped moving. And the third threat was the one that lived inside the skull. It was the sound, a twig snapping 10 feet away in total blackness. A shift of gravel, a breath that wasn't one of yours. In the dark, you cannot see what made the sound, so your mind has to guess. And the guess is always the worst one, because the ancestors whose minds guessed predator and were wrong lived to have children, and the ones who guessed nothing and were right, most nights eventually guessed wrong once. That blind, jolting panic in the dark is not a flaw. It is an inheritance. It is the survival of everyone who was afraid of the right thing. So how did they live through it? How does a slow, weak, night-blind animal survive 8 hours, every night, for 200,000 years, in a world full of things designed to eat it? They built a wall out of fire. We tend to picture the campfire as comfort, a warm glow, a nice feeling, something optional. Strip that idea away completely. For them, the fire was not comfort. The fire was the wall between the living and the dead, and it was a wall that would collapse if you stopped holding it up. Flame keeps cold out and pushes hypothermia back. Flame throws light into the black ring where the eyes are waiting, and no Ice Age predator, however hungry, wants to walk into fire. And flame does one more thing. It makes smoke and smell and crackle, a signal that says this ground is taken, move on. But fire has a fatal weakness, it dies. Left alone, it burns down, cools to embers, and goes dark. And the wall comes down at the exact hour you need it most, which means someone had to feed it. All night, every night. This is where one of the oldest and quietest jobs in human history begins. The fire watch. At sites like Qesem Cave, we find hearths used over and over across enormous spans of time. The same spot, tended, returned to, kept. That is not an accident of one cold evening. That is a habit, a discipline, a rotation. Someone stayed awake while the others slept. They fed the flame, they listened to the dark, and when they grew heavy-eyed, they woke the next person and lay down in the warm spot they'd left behind. The group survived the night because the group never, all at once, closed its eyes. And here is where pressure turned into genius. Because desperation is the mother of nearly everything clever we've ever made. They learned to bank embers so a fire could survive being ignored, holding heat under ash until morning. They built windbreaks so the wall of flame wouldn't be torn apart by a gust. They lifted their beds off the freezing ground onto platforms and piles of grass and hide, cutting off that silent bleed of heat into the earth. Later, much later, they made an alliance with the one predator willing to switch sides, and the wolf that became the dog took over part of the night watch with ears and a nose far better than any humans. But the real invention wasn't a tool. It was time itself. Fire didn't just keep them alive through the night, it gave them the night. Hours of safe, warm, waking time in the dark that no animal before them had ever possessed. And what they did with those hours is the strangest and most beautiful thing about how humans sleep. Because here is the twist. Our ancestors did not sleep the way you were told humans are supposed to sleep. They did not lie down at dusk and rise at dawn in one unbroken block of 8 hours. They slept in 2 shifts. There was a first sleep, beginning not long after dark. Then, in the deep middle of the night, they woke, naturally, calmly, without alarm, for an hour or more of quiet wakefulness. And then they returned to a second sleep until morning. The historian Roger Ekirch found this pattern written all through old records, referred to so casually that people clearly assumed everyone knew it. First sleep and second sleep, with a waking hour between them as ordinary as breakfast. That midnight waking was not insomnia. It was not a disorder. It was the design. It was the hour to feed the fire, to check the dark, to murmur to the person beside you, to let the body rest without ever fully abandoning the watch. Sleep itself had been shaped around the danger, split in 2 so that a human was never, for the whole night, completely gone. And in that quiet, wakeful hour, humanity became something new. Gathered in the only pool of light for miles, warm, safe, and awake in the middle of the dark, they began to talk, to tell. The Firewatch became the first human theatre, the place where a day's hunt turned into a story, where the dead turned into ancestors, where fear of the dark turned into myth and song. The same glow that held off the cave lions is the glow that let them paint the deep, unlit chambers of Lascaux and carve meaning into ochre at Blombos Cave. The Night Watch didn't only protect the body, it built the imagination. Everything we mean by culture was, at its root, invented by people staying awake so they wouldn't die. So what did ancient humans do all night? They burned, they watched, they woke on purpose, and they told the first stories the species ever told in the 1 hour the fire brought them between 2 sleeps. Now the mirror. Today the dark is background, a locked door, a soft glow, a temperature you never notice. But your body did not get the message that the predators are gone, so it still runs the old program. That jolt of fear at a sound in a dark house. That strange alert waking at 3 in the morning when nothing is wrong. That is not a malfunction. That is a 50,000-year-old firewatch, still turning over inside you, still doing its shift long after the last cave lion died. So tonight, when you jolt awake in the dark for no reason and the house is silent, understand that something in you is still standing guard, still counting the breaths in the room. The question was never why you woke. The question is who you were listening for.